Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Humans Season 2, Episode 1. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Humans. So I have to give a spoiler warning for Humans up to Season 2, Episode 1. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So I'm really excited about Humans Return, as its second season is starting a bit later in the year than the first season did. However, it kind of just snuck up on me because I had read that it wasn't supposed to start until December, and I just found out it was starting now just yesterday, so I hadn't had time to review season 1 again. So it's been over a year since I've seen it, so I'm a bit foggy on the details. However, I remember enough to follow along, and it seems season 2 will follow its own path anyway, so I'm sure it won't be entirely necessary to do so. So I have to say, this was an amazing start to the season that has me really excited for the show going forward. I was a huge fan of Season 1, and it seems Season 2 is going to have that same quality, yet be different enough where it doesn't feel like it's just repeating the same story beats. So the season starts out following Niska as she finds romance with another woman in Berlin. However, as we know, she has the code that creates consciousness and sense, and it appears she's struggling with whether or not to do anything about it. And I loved the way this played out, and how she went to her lover for advice on how to proceed, even if her lover wasn't aware of exactly what they were talking about. And it did make me wonder throughout if she would reveal to her lover that she is a synth, but apparently didn't. And overall, I thought the romance played out very well. But eventually she does upload the program to a network, and apparently she expects it to immediately affect every synth instantly, but appears to have no effect. However, we learn that it does have an effect on random synths at random places in the world, as we see a miner in Bolivia suddenly gain consciousness, and later a factory worker also suddenly gain consciousness. And apparently Max and Leo find them and try to help them. How they managed to find them, I'm not sure, but they did, and it looks like Season 2 will be about random synths becoming conscious at random times, and Max and Leo struggling to help them through it. And I have to say, this sounds like a very promising storyline. However, this episode set the stage for Season 2 in other ways by introducing other familiar characters, such as Anita, who was the star of Season 1, but so far Season 2 seems to have more of a focus on Niska, as she had also appeared more in the trailers. So I'm not sure if they're changing focus here, but either way, Anita is still around, and she's working in a restaurant posing as a typical synth, and it seems like she's posing as a rental for an agency that's getting the money, but really she's keeping the money for herself to support her, Max, and Leo. So this at first I found odd that she would reconnect with another human. Why not just go back to the Hawkings, whom she had already formed a bond with? But when I found out she's just working a job to get some money, it did make a lot more sense. Plus, she mentioned her need to be around humans, so Anita has always been the more human-friendly of the sentient sense, so I hope they continue with this dynamic. And speaking of the Hawkings, we see them again settling into their new life and coping with Joe's infidelity, and seeing Joe was laid off in favor of a synth. So I wonder if we'll see the Hawkings again this season, or if they'd be written off the show, but apparently they're still here. But for the majority of this episode, I was wondering what relevance they could still have to the main story, and hoping that they weren't just an aside that's just there just for the sake of keeping them in the show. But of course, this is tied up at the end of the episode when Niska appears, wanting their help in turning herself in for murder, but being tried as a human. Therefore, she's trying to go public with the fact that she's sentient, which will, of course, really shake up everything. And it seems like they're setting up for a really interesting storyline indeed. And then we get introduced to another storyline in LA with the actress Carrie Ann Moss, best known for starring in the Matrix trilogy, who also starred in films such as Memento, and more recently recently appeared in Jessica Jones, where she plays a scientist who's trying to create sentient AIs and is approached by a billionaire playboy who wants to mass market advanced synths, and she's totally opposed to him as he is driven purely by financial motivations, where she's more of a scientist. But he reveals that he has a sentient synth, which is obviously the result of Niska's program, but of course she has no idea how it happened, so wants to study it in order to reproduce it. It's interesting that she had created her own sentient AI, but it was just a bodiless program that required an absurd amount of power to operate, and she wanted to keep it hidden from that playboy millionaire. So obviously the sentient synths are far more advanced than what she could come up with, and I had to say, I think this storyline is a fascinating addition. I can't wait to see where they take it. Will Carrie-Anne Moss's character become a hero or a villain? I kind of think they're building her up to be sort of a helpful kind of character, like what they did with William Hurt in season 1, but we'll see. I do think the billionaire guy is going to be a villain, but I'm not convinced that he was the same one who sent the security agents to retrieve Hester. But that may be the case, but I'm not convinced of that. And I think there's another set of villains that we don't know about yet. So speaking of Hester, I love the storyline of the runaway synths going to Max and Leo for help, although so far it's just the two, and it seems like there should be much more. It says that Ten traveled to England to find Leo and Max, but doesn't state how he knew to seek them out. And it seems to me there should be a lot more synths who are sentient, as we've seen the billionaire got his hand on a couple of them. So it seems like it will be kind of a quest with Leo and Max trying to find them all. I was disappointed that Ten was killed off so quickly, but it looks like Hester will become a main character, and I think this could lead to something great. Also, overall, I like the global scope that Season 2 is having, where Season 1 was limited to England. In this episode alone, we have scenes in Germany, Bolivia, and the US, and I hope they keep this up for the rest of the season, as it does give one a broader perspective of the synths being a worldwide phenomenon in this reality. So my rating for Humans Season 2, Episode 1 out of 10 is a 9. Excellent. This was mostly just a setup episode, setting the stage for Season 2, but as setup episodes go, this was a really great one that seems to be setting up some really fascinating storylines that I can't wait to see explored more this season. Season 1 kind of felt like a self-contained season, and one could argue that Season 2 isn't even necessary, so I had my doubts about Season 2, as I could easily see how this season could end up coming off as just a tacked-on story. But after seeing this episode, it looks like they're setting up for a new and totally dynamic storyline, different from Season 1, but it piggybacks on what Season 1 started, and it looks like this storyline has the potential to be just as good or better. So that's it for my review of Humans Season 2, Episode 1. Be sure to check back here as I continue to review episodes of Humans. However, I can't guarantee I'll cover every episode every week, but will cover the important ones and definitely touch back on Season 2 as it progresses. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. Also check out my channel for many more videos on shows such as Game of Thrones, Star Trek, The Walking Dead, and more, so be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. Thanks a lot for watching.